Hi, my name is Aoife Carrigy and I'm here to tell you a little bit about matching beer and food. You're probably more familiar with the idea of matching food and wine, but actually beer is very, very versatile. So we have a few rules of thumb to get you started. But first of all, the important thing is to pay attention. So first of all, have a drink of the beer, whichever one you fancy, and taste it. And ask yourself, what kind of beer is it? Is it light and crisp, or is it rich and heavy? Maybe it's quite a sweet beer, which could be to do with the malt content, or maybe it's a more bitter beer from the hops. And the good thing is there is no set rules, as I say, but there are some rules of thumb to get you started. So first rule of thumb is think like but like. So if your beer is quite sweet, then you might want to go for sweet food. So we're not just talking about desserts, also lots of savoury dishes, a North African tagine, or maybe a honey baked ham, that kind of thing. But even dishes like this lovely steak sandwich here, which has a nice onion marmalade. Now, one of the things that happens when you do pair like with like is that you start to make way for all the other flavours in the background. So you discover more nuanced flavours in the beer itself. Okay, so rule number 2 is opposites attract. So in the same way that that peanut butter jam works or salted caramels work, to play off sweet and salty foods really works, and most cooks know this, which is why, for example, with this cheese board, we've paired salty Cashel Blue cheese with the sweet fig chutney. So in the same way, one of your sweeter, maltier beers is going to work with salty foods. It also works very well with smoked foods, which are often quite salty as well. Rule number 3 is aim for balance. So this is kind of like rule number 1, which was like with like, but it's more about balancing the intensity and complexity of the flavours rather than picking out individual flavours themselves. So the aim is that you don't want one element to overwhelm the other. So take for example, if you're going for a crisp, kind of light Pilsner style beer, you're probably better off sticking with something quite lightly cooked or simple flavours. So for example, like a poached fish or steamed fish, that kind of thing, nice clean flavours. If on the other hand you're going for something like this cloudy wheat beer, it's more complex, it has more going on in it, so you want a dish that's going to kind of have the personality to stand up to that. So something like this would be ideal. It's spiced pumpkin, so spiced roast pumpkin, quite intense flavours. There's the onion jam, there is goat's cheese, and there's also sun-dried tomato dressing in there, so really kind of strong flavours. You need something quite complex to balance with it. So rule number 4, beer is fizzy. Sounds kind of obvious, but it's worth thinking about because fat likes fizz. It's one of the reasons that champagne works really well with smoked salmon, for example. The carbonation of the beer or the champagne helps to clean our palate of all those kind of cloying flavours, of the fatty flavours. Rule number 5 then, beer can be used to season food. So we've talked about some of the predominant flavours like the sweetness or the bitterness, but also the beer might have some kind of secondary flavours or background flavours. So you might pick up on maybe some lemoniness or maybe herbs like coriander. So you can use those flavours to season the food that you're going for. So maybe those lemon flavours might suggest some seafood, some crab cakes for example, or the herby flavours like the coriander might suggest a Thai curry or Mexican food maybe. So there you have it. There's our 5 rules of thumb. We have like with like, we have opposites attract, aim for balance, remember that beer is fizzy, and remember that beer can season food. But the brilliant thing is that actually if you forget all of these, it doesn't really matter because it's really just about experimenting and seeing what works for you. So enjoy.